Hello and welcome to another edition of the House of Wisdom Lightest and Best videos, where we look at the lightest and best offerings from a variety of manufacturers. And today we have a special treat. This is a folding knife from North Arm called the Skaha. And I know it's the lightest and best folding knife they make because it's the only folding knife they make. They also make some kitchen knives. They have 4 fixed blade knives also. They're larger and heavier. This is not only the lightest knife at 3.1 ounces, but it's the only folding knife they made. And for their first iteration, it is a wonderful knife. We're going to talk about it a little bit. First of all, we'll talk about the company. North Arm Knives is located in Vancouver, British Columbia area of Canada. The company is named after the north arm of the Fraser River, which is nearby where they live. Skaha takes its name from a lake in Okanagan Valley in British Columbia. The owner of the company is John Gudmundson and his son Michael, and they run the business. It's sort of a one-man shop business. Well, anyway, we'll talk about the specifications of the knife. The blade length of the knife is 3.3 inches. The handle length is 4.4 inches. We're giving a total length of the knife of 7.75 inches. The weight of the knife is 3.1 ounces. I have some knives for comparison. First of all, the Shirogorov Neon Light, which is a little smaller. The Benchmade 940, which is a little larger. The Spyderco Para 3, which is a little smaller. The Olamic Cutlery 24/7, which is a little larger. The Emerson Traveler, and today is the last day of the eBay bid on this Emerson Traveler, and the bids are going up, so this will be the last you'll see the Emerson Traveler, sadly, in my collection. And then the Delica, which everyone likes to see because it's sort of an industry standard, which is a little smaller than the Skaha. The blade of the Skaha is made of S35VN. You can see the marking there that says S35VN. It has CNC milling, which is interesting. One of the other knives that has such milling is the Grimsmo Norseman. I'll put a picture of it here. And each pass the CNC bit makes, they don't try to smooth it out. They bump it up a little bit, and as you can see, there are distinct lines left, which is very interesting. The CNC machine made maybe 30 passes on each side of the blade on this knife, and it leaves an interesting milling pattern, which only custom knives like the Norseman have. I don't know many other knives that leave the CNC marks and don't buff them out, but that's sort of a nice addition. It's in a semi-hollow ground configuration with the primary bevel, and the cutting edge is ground to 30 degrees inclusive, 15 on each side. Lovely blade. The method of deployment is by flipper, and the flipper tab has good jimping on it, good configuration, and the detent is snappy. It flips out hard and good, and the action is good. It returns with just a little bit of shaking. The centering is perfect. The lockup is rock solid. This is a well-built knife. The handle of the knife, in my iteration, is made of Dayglow Yellow G10, and it has curved chamfered edges so that it has very good ergonomics in the hand. The handle is also made in natural, tan, purple, black, orange, and OD green. The handle is distinctive in that it has really thick G10 scales, and I'm trying to press this as hard as I can, and there's really not much flex there at all. I want to contrast this. Sometimes you get G10 handles. This is the bug out. Now, I don't want to pick on the bug out because I love what Benchmade did. They tried to make the lightest knife possible. This rascal is only 1.8 ounces, I believe. But the G10 handle is thin, and then it's milled out, and you can flex it a lot. There are other G10 handles, like this is the Kershaw Osu Suite, and they have thin G10. I want to compare it with the thick G10 on my knife, on the North Arm. And they put steel liners to add some rigidity, but even with that, I can flex this. And on the North Arm, the G10 is so beefy that you press it and you really just can't flex it. You do not need steel liners for this. It has a stainless steel lock bar insert made of S35VN, just like the knife blade, so that the lockup is secure and there's no blade lock face deterioration over time. But it is not for structural rigidity. It's just a thin little piece of metal the length of the blade to function as the lock bar interface. And on the handle, they have a lanyard hole between the two standoffs. The construction is a flow-through design, which is my favorite. It's easy to clean, just blow it out. It's got one pivot and two standoffs, easy smeezy. The pivot is made of steel ball bearings on thrust washers and is very smooth. The lock is a captive liner lock, and it's made of the S35VN steel, as I've mentioned. The pocket clip is a steel pocket clip that is embedded in a milled out area so that there's no wiggle whatsoever, and it's got good spring retention. The ergonomics on the knife are great. It feels, because the handles are very curved with the CNC machining, it feels completely smooth and completely great in the hand. The signage on the knife is minimal. On the handle, there's no signage whatsoever. And on the blade, on the show side, there is the maker's mark, North Arm, and the steel type in this blade, S35VN. And then on the clip side, they have made in BC, which of course means British Columbia. Some knife makers in the United States like to show off their nationality. They'll say made in the USA. This reminds me of the Sabenza from Chris Reeve. Instead of saying made in the USA, they say Idaho made. So there's some state nationality that exists out of Texas and exists in both Idaho and British Columbia, turns out. The value of the knife. This knife sells for $175, and we're going to talk about that on the impressions part of the video. So what are my impressions of the North Arm Skaha? I really like it. Are there opportunities for improvement? Well, sure. I want to talk to you about some of the challenges that the Skaha has. First of all, it's a little pricey at $175 for some people buying a G10 handled knife, and it's got some tough competition. We'll bring in the Benchmade 940. Now, this is the carbon fiber, and this is over $200. It's a little more expensive. But the base model 940 and S30V with just regular G10 handles cost $170, the same price as the Skaha. So that's one of the main competitors. This is completely a grail knife for many people, and a lot of men love this, and women, I guess, love the Benchmade 940. The other competition it has is the Spyderco Para 3, and for those of you Para 2 users with a large hand, it would be the Para 2. The Para 3 comes in this base model with S30V at about $120, and you can get a Super Steel S110V for $147, so it's even a little bit less expensive than this. So this knife has its competition at that price point. What do I like about the knife? I love the CNC patterning on the blade, and as I've mentioned, the only other time I've seen this like this is in the Grimsmo Norseman, and you can't buy a Grimsmo Norseman these days for less than $1,000 unless you can pick it up directly from John Grimsmo and Eric Grimsmo. And I like the handle. The handle has this day glow yellow, which is not a color you usually find on knives. And I like color on knives. I'm going to show you some of my colorful knives. I, for whatever reason, have collected a bunch of orange knives, and that's great because if you're out in the woods and you drop a brightly colored knife, it's easy to find. If you have, like so many of my knives that are titanium or carbon fiber, black and dull gray, it's sometimes hard to find if there's not some color to it. Plus, I just grab these, and I find myself putting these in my pocket a lot just because the color makes me happy. One of the things I want to say is that there's a bias against having G10 on both handles and having a liner lock, and I'll talk to you about what I mean about you. The center two knives here are very expensive knives in the $400 to $600 range. This one is the Hinder XM18. It's a 3-inch blade, and this is the Brad Southard Spyderco with smock modification. The thing that these knives both have in common, look how they have a matching pivot collar with the G10 scale there on the Southard. I really like that. Well, the thing that these knives have in common is they have titanium bases, titanium linings, and they just put an overlay of G10 on there, and so they get a lot of respect, and they go for $400 to $600, these knives. We'll talk about these knives, and these are the Rodney Dangerfields, because they are G10 knives or some sort of plastic on the outside, and then they have a liner lock that is steel. And again, here is the Rat 2 from Ontario, and it has G10 scales or something like it, and then a liner lock. So basically, that is the format for this. It has a liner lock with G10 scales on both sides, and so these knives tend to go for less than $30, whereas if you have a titanium scale and the G10, they go for $400 to $600. So I don't understand it, except that this knife is different. It is so thick and beefy with its G10 scales that there's absolutely no flex. It's completely rigid, and the action has this world-class action. It's on bearings instead of just washers like some of the other knives. It flips great and just falls shut with a little bit of shaking. The centering is perfect. The lockup is perfect. It is a high-quality knife made in a G10 liner lock form. Well, if you're looking for something like that, a high-quality knife with a unique CNC milling pattern on the blade, colorful G10 scales, you get to choose the color, then the North Arm Skaha may be the knife for you. Let me know your opinion of the North Arm Skaha in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you on the next House of Wisdom, lightest and best knife video.